Stand by. Oh, thanks for staying with us. I was just repeating my producer. All right, so we're talking about this issue of jungle justice, and I was going back to, I think I like what Nima said earlier about how we're putting the children part of it and how we're raising our kids. You know, I remember a story when I was a young girl, and I will never forget. There's a lady, one of the ladies, the women on our street. We call her Big Mommy. She's late now, and she has a help. She's one of those very big mommies that she and her help are always having issues. We were hearing their voice from her house. So I think the help did something. Maybe she weed on her bed or something. So she was really upset. So she called all the children on the street. All of us gave us cane one by one. We formed a circle around this girl, and we started beating her. And she instructed us to go, and she was telling us to sing. You know, ask us to sing, and we're flogging her as she was. And that's what we saw. I still remember that entire, because that was my first time. I had never seen that kind of display of until she called me to do that. So a child grows up seeing that, because that's how we raise our kids, public display of discipline or shaming. You know, some fathers will tell you, I will come to your school. And I remember there was a school, Mr. Akpata, I think, I can't remember the school, I mean, in Isolo. He will beat the kids, you know, this public display of shame. So we have been raised to say, until you do it publicly. Now, it goes back to the question I always ask. Do we want a secular system? Do we want, or should we just go back to our traditional ways? Because sometimes we think we are modern. We like to think that we're educated and we see things differently. But who we are, how we were raised, the things we're exposed to, it's very traditional. And that's how some of us...
Not traditional.
I am telling you,
not traditional.
it's good for you. You know, I always say that the problem of the Nigerian problem is this middle class.
No.
Wait, I'm almost done now. My own problem, not all of you, because you have already had a bit of exposure. So the reason why because you all have a certain level of exposure. You know, you think differently. But the average man out there, the way they think is
I was going to...
I'll let you come and talk away.
Because, see, I do not believe that culturally there was justice carried out without the elders having conversation.
Thank you.
Culturally, justice would always take place. Elders would have a conversation. They would hear both sides and they would agree this is what should be done. It might still be a public shaming justice, but the investigation would have taken place. Culturally, we investigate. We don't just jump into action. I feel jungle justice is very barbaric. It is a barbaric action, and it is such an emotional-based action that, in most cases, you can't control how it will turn out. You might want to scam somebody. Let me just further and pretend I fainted. You were thinking they would gather around the person and give you money, but they gathered around and killed the person. That wasn't what you planned. Jungle justice might be a case of, a pretend case of, oh, this person stole so that they will show him and teach him, but they ended up killing him. That wasn't your plan. Oh, everybody gather and beat my daughter for me, or beat this my house girl. She's peeing on the bed. That's how they beat an eye pluck out. You did not plan for the eye to pluck out, but it has happened. There are unforeseen scenarios that can lead to killings that you probably did not plan for. So there's no way to you can't control how far the beating will go, or how far what your justice will, how that justice will be meted out. At the end of the day, the worst case scenario is you might end up punishing an innocent person, which is why we cannot even, there's no justification.
Let me take this call from Ontario. Olu, thanks for calling. You're live.
Jungle justice. Two things are in place, okay? The first one is ignorance, that is religion or personal conviction or lack of enlightenment. And the second thing is failure to see the person.
Hello?
Audio is not clear.
Yeah.
Oh my God, go ahead, Ma'am. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was going to give you what I think may be a better analogy, what we did traditionally and what jungle justice is. So traditionally, from the books that I have read, some of the movies and plays that we've seen, there's jungle shaming, or a mob would, call you out and they will walk you through the streets to go to where they will now investigate and ask you questions. There was no killing involved until the investigation is done. So it also reminds me, which is almost like what we used to do when people were being executed publicly. So they will go through the proper investigation process, and then execution was done publicly. That execution or the meting out of the punishment was done publicly to serve as a deterrent to anyone who may be thinking that that is what they were going to do. So it wasn't about just seeing someone, judging the person in the moment and carrying out punishment in the moment, you know. So sometimes we have told we haven't told our stories properly,
accurately,
and then we mix it up and then show as if we're a set of barbaric people that did not, you know, that did not have any sense. In fact, this was a conversation we're having recently, and maybe we should make it a topic, that we have been sold a story about our history by people who were not us, that are people who came to colonize us. We don't know our real story. We keep believing them. You know, somebody said a race of people that had civilizations long before we both got here, and then we both told you that they gave you salt and mirror, and your ancestors were running after them. Does it make sense? You know, so that is where we should separate those stories. I don't think we ever did that. We had a system. In fact, when you look at different traditional way of government, we had a group of people that investigated crimes. If we were just barbaric people, just killing people off anyhow, why did we have those group of set of people that, you know, investigated crime? There is no justification for jungle justice at all. And we have come to see, even modern times, you know, with that public shaming does not work. That one you talked about, in the north, what they used to do is they'll put a child who's been peeing on the bed on a hyena, and they'll cover its mouth. And then they'll put you on that. Once they put you on that hyena and walk you up and down the street, everybody knows that you are someone that pees on the bed. And everybody will be, you know, singing and following and clapping. I forget the song now, please. When you remember, send it to me. And they'll take you up and down. And they did it for, I won't say how. They did it for somebody I know. And in fact, the feedback was that the pee that night was 2 times worse because of the fear that it, for some of them, you even created more fear, and you know it became worse. So we are learning. It's not even about just being modern or being Western. It's that we're also learning that these things that we used to do did not really impact positively on people.
You've seen a hyena before?
Yeah.
Hyena in books. I've never seen it before.
Never seen a hyena.
No.
People don't have the hyenas that they cover, and then they'll take them up and down the
I'm
street.
surprised. Sounds like in a cartoon, in a jungle justice book. I've never. Oh, wow, that's interesting. In the north.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Whose pet was a wild monkey. We used to call it Jackie. Just so, before I take this, let me say a shout out to my auntie. I've seen your message. She's watching. We had a system of justice completely based on morals. So a sin or a crime was a sin against the gods. And so when you do something that is sacrilegious like that, they will not just give you a punishment. You'll be made to appease, to cleanse, to go through. That's why you see the parading. What if it was just a crime? Maybe you were a harsh housewife. You were not welcoming to your in-laws. They can ostracize. We had a system. Not totally bereft of understanding. We had a system where if a woman were to commit adultery, make her not go kill her husband, they must cleanse her. As opposed to not just, you know, she will be made to do the cleansing. So that cleansing takes her maybe naked around the markets, or some women would escort her in a particular kind of dressing. A woman who carries her child and allows the child falls off her back, who is supposed to make her, to deter her from being that careless in the future. They will tell her that that child would experience certain kind of consequences in future. She was supposed to throw her wrapper off and run crazy around the market. To avoid such an embarrassment, every mother used Oja tie their pikin. So we had a system that not only punished, it deterred. Right. We believed in it because it was also tied religiously to serving our gods, our oriki, our everything, our lineages were supposed to be hating a particular kind of thing. Our system was set. But I also understand the parading.
So the reason why I wanted to add to that, because just like I think I agree with Tope and Mariam, where I'm coming from what I know, what I saw. But there it's been the tradition has been distorted from the originality, what it was before. What we
I even wanted to answer Tope on that. So we had our tradition. Yes, it was religiously based, and the kings and the elders decided, but it was not fact-based. In the sense that if I look, Agbalagbo King Paro is a saying of our Westerners. So if I look at Tope and I don't like her, senior her even with 1 minute, I'm an agbalagba. I'm allowed in the elders' caucus for Tokwe not to be able to talk back. So when I accuse Tokwe of having worn my wristwatch, before she can say, no, it wasn't your... I'm talking. As I'm talking, how dare you? It happens still today. When we have elders who shut the child up, who has a real case. A child might be molested by her dad, but when she comes to the elders' council to try to explain, how dare she talk back at her dad?
Yeah, but I would like us to separate that there's a system and then there's the abuse of the system. Even with Western systems, there's a system, there's the abuse as well.
I need to read this message from my aunt. My aunt, I'm not even going to mention her name, sent me a message because she heard my story and she was living on the same, we live on the same street where it happened. Said, I heard your story of the shaming of the household. I think I know who you're talking about. I always found her so cruel to her house helps. She used to strip them naked and beat them ferociously for any infraction. The story was that her husband was abusing the girls sexually. And she was acting out her frustrations on the poor girls. So these girls suffered at both ends and were subject to sexual, emotional, and physical trauma. Up till now, I have never gotten over this. I have tried never to brutalize anyone ever, and I still wonder what happened to these girls. So that's the real story. But this story we thought was that she just used to pee on her bed, and they made us...
Yeah, but there's trauma. Please, let me quickly say something. Yes, because sometimes we repeat the same circle. And some of those children that watched and beat might end up beating their own housemates too, repeating what they have seen. I love what you said about the fact that our history might be a bit distorted. Maya mentioned it as well. When we are historically, in the purest form of our history, there's justice. But in the distorted form, after colonization, we have become a very aggressive people because we were taught to use aggression to suppress other people as a way to make some people feel powerful. So they'll have constable. The constable is just a regular person. Constable is one constable cannot met out justice on a normal day culturally. Before justice is meted out, everybody, there'll have been a committee meeting. But with colonization, there was constable empowered who could just see something and beat the person based on individual power, and we're still in that same circle till today because we have not gone back to study who we are and our true history. We are being colored by the way we're brutalized under colonization. Which
also,
well
there's a saying in my tribe that I thought dealt with framing our elders. There's this saying, they say, Ogomo boyo or degweyo. So if a child errs, he pays the sacrifice of a ram. But if he sees the elders, it's a life. So to sort of check the elders, when you try, you lie, because nobody will query the elder now. You lie. You're made to understand that sin is not against the child again. It's against the ancestors, the ancestry. So that if the child were to call, it is your life that goes. But if the child was to lie against an elder and it comes out, the child can come and do an appeasement and you can forgive. So an error that you do like that nobody can check, there's God checking it. And we have so many of those sayings. Even though we have the saying of Agbalagbo Leparo that elders have abused over the years, accused children. I used to hate the fact that my neighbors could walk to my parents and say something I did not do, and my mom would not ask. My mom believes that everybody was communally raising her girls. So any of my aunties that I look at, one can say, well, Otirogo, I usually go and beg them quickly because if they were to throw a lie in front of my mother, there's no soap that will clean me up.
So let me ask you guys a very difficult question.
I remember the song. Me pusari akwenche akwalala, me pusari akwenche akwalala. They will sing it back and forth.
Oh,
you're supposed to feel shame. But
I have a caller, Mark from Abuja. Good morning, Mark. You're live. Oh, we lost that caller.
Sorry.
So, in the issue of homosexuality, because there are homosexuals living amongst us here in Lagos. I don't know about that state, so. But these Lagos, they're here. Is it right for anybody to mob these people because what they are doing, their act is illegal? What is the right thing to do in that situation? I mean, or should you just mind your business?
I don't think Nigerians have ever mobbed an homosexual just minding his business in our history. I have not witnessed. We've what do you call them? A feminist?
feminist.
We have them working, a feminist male, working funnily amongst us. We've had those who are sexually disposed to their gender living amongst us, and everybody will be gossiping about it in our streets. But nobody carry cane and beat them. What we will not overlook as a community, and I see that happening in Jungle Justice, that I can even, is catching them in the rape of an innocent young
pedophilia. It's different from homosexuality.
Yeah.
That's pedophilia.
No,
Let's
I'm even
not
talking
mix
of
it.
the same gender now. You know, we
it's
assume
pedophilia
that
too.
boys cannot be raped. And over the years, we see how it has affected our boys. Our boys have been raped, damaged, and they don't even know where their sexual disposition lies because of the experience of it.
Yeah.
And I have seen a few times when you sit down and talk about it, the emotions he wells is that if you catch her, kill her.
Yes.
That's how
But
Nigerians
if you
talk about
catch
it.
that kind of person, what's the right thing to do? Because he also is coming from somewhere. He's also a traumatized. Somebody
Might
traumatized
be.
him. It's
But
possible.
if you're an adult,
He's-
you're no.
So the point is that
responsibility.
he's also coming from somewhere. So should you just take him to the police or arrest him to the police?
100%.
Or because,
Yeah.
because we just...
100%.
100%.
Just drag
Take
all
it
of them involved to
To
the
the
police
police,
station.
that's it.
Immediately.
And let's just
That's
put
not
let's
enough.
let's put
That's
this
not enough.
let's put this in perspective.
Yeah, let me have a caller.
Okay.
Mark from Abuja is back. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
Yes. My contribution over this is, you see, jungle justice is unacceptable. You understand?
Yeah.
Right from when I was growing up as a child, you have been hearing about jungle justice, and even our religious leaders, our institutional leaders, educational leaders, they are all condemning it. But you see, the problem we do have in Africa, most especially in Africa, is that of when you relate jungle justice to, I think I was reading on news once upon a time, and they say lock round out of a kidnapper. He bought in symbols with his kidnapped victim, which he released once upon a time. And people over there give him jungle justice. You see, but the problem is when you arrest these guys that are into this crime of a thing, for example, you take them you hand them over to the security agency. You will never even hear about how the issue. The issue will just sweep under the carpet and nobody will come up with the story anymore. You understand me? Okay. Let's say, for example, I think in Katsina, the commissioner of police last time was saying that banditry now is now an industry in Kaduna State, whereby even a sitting legislative member was being caught in an act, and even head of district was being caught. At the end of the day, let's say, okay, these people were being caught and they are being handed over to the security operatives, and before you know, these people will still reunite them back to the society. You understand the point?
Yeah.
They will still reunite. I think I was discussing with a friend, and he told me in Kaduna there was one guy
Thank you very much, Mark. That's bringing it. So that's the issue Nigerians are having.
They don't, justice is not
we don't.
seen.
So we don't trust the justice system. That's the truth, and it's not just for cases like this. For many other cases, there's so many things that we feel that the justice system has failed us, from investigation to judgment. But that does not still justify jungle justice, because we make mistakes. Just as the justice system makes mistakes, the jungle justice also makes mistakes that cost lives. And so for me, that's why I would never accept that. Now you find someone who has committed pedophilia, whether to a female child or a male child, that person deserves to be punished. And we have a constitution that has stated out how that person should be punished. We have a medical doctor who has been on our show many times, who is in prison today because the justice system, did something. But it did not take just the justice system. It took people around him to also speak up. It's very easy for some of us to blame justice system, but when it comes to investigation and telling the truth where it matters, we don't do it. When people open their mouth to speak, we call them out. We remember how Princess was dragged. It's because she refused to keep quiet. That we saw justice. Exactly. So we also have a society that does jungle justice with mouth in the other way around, where we're perpetrating evil because we refuse to stand for what is true. So there is a punishment for people that commit pedophilia. There's investigation that goes on, and when you see something, please say something. And then when the people have done that, justice system must make sure that they carry out what they are supposed to. I cannot accept jungle justice for anything, honestly, because investigation is not done properly. There are some people who have because they've gone through the courts, they have been saved. In fact, this story was recent about a woman who had divorced her husband because the children had told her that their father was abusing them. And they went their separate ways. The father said he tried, to explain himself, his innocence. Nobody believed him. After a few years, the girls opened up to their mom. That was because they wanted to come and live with her abroad. Or something. And that's why they lied on their father. Imagine if there was jungle justice. That man would have died for nothing.
Yeah.
So there was investigation, and this system that we have gives room for, the innocent to be able to be, declared properly innocent, and the person who is guilty to be found properly guilty. And that is what we're asking for.
Let me take this call from Chooks, calling from Yaba. Thanks for calling. You're live.
Yes, good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Yeah, this issue of homosexual is actually everywhere. I had a friend who confirmed that how he became an homosexual was from a teacher, a copper, who came to serve in his school. He said he was 3 years, he was in SS3 when this guy hired him. This guy I'm telling you about went to prison because of homosexual. He's married, his wife is abroad, he's Nigerian doing homosexual with you now. So now, we parents have to be very, very careful in the schools our children attend. Some parents will take their children to a school, they don't even pay a surprise visit. We need to show, as we have a conversation with these children, know who they contact with. That is why most times, when you see them in the society now, it's now the norm. It's not a normal thing now. People see that as a normal thing. I went for a program of patients. I saw children between 15, 16, 17, homosexual. They see the way they were behaving in the crowd. I was like, what is this? Immediately I woke up to them. I told them, I said, if I see any of you together, I'm going to break your head. I'll arrest all of you. That night. These are children who are still under their parents' rule. What is it the generation as it's producing now? So we need to sit down now in catching these people now, maybe noticing them. I don't think killing them is a point. Reporting them is one thing that we need to do to the authorities.
Thank you very much, Chooks. I was talking about issue, that sometimes we're trying to see how we can justify these things. And I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of people who try to engage in these things, because sometimes you don't get into their heads. You won't understand where they're coming from. Although we agree that jungle justice is wrong. A woman who has had a problem with a child who has started using drugs because there's a drug dealer down the street that's been selling drugs. You've done everything to stop your child from taking the drugs. Your child is now a junkie. And then the community finds this drug dealer somehow, beat him up, mob him, and you choose to walk away because you see them doing it. This is a child that, unfortunately, your child has left the house, has walked away because he became a drug dealer. You tried to rehabilitate this child. You as a mother see them about to burn this guy to death. And you just walk away. So these are things that we see. I'm just saying that because if we're going to fix Nigeria, we must agree what system do we want to use.
You can imagine every scenario possible. But as long as there's a very present, there's a very reality that you might end up catching the wrong person. And for that reason, you cannot afford to carry out jungle justice. You asked the question about pedophilia, homosexuality, and all those things. Because we are so repulsed by it, like Nima said, it's an emotional reaction. Like this, even the caller said, I'm going to break your head if I see you doing. It's just, our reaction is very... We're not even conscious of our reaction. So we might react in a way that is beyond what after we're done, we'll be like, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe I did this. And that's why we don't carry out. Even they say when you're beating your child, even if you want to discipline your child, don't discipline your child in the moment where you are in that emotion, in that anger, because you will do what you cannot even believe you did. So in most cases, you have to step back and rationalize, how do I best deal with this situation? If you catch two people in the act of homosexuality, the reaction is not to beat them or to beat them to death or burn them alive. How? Like, what would that serve? It will just make them go under and it will spread more. So the idea is not by hating on people to solve a problem. It's by loving and educating them to solve a problem if you feel that's a problem. So I do not in any way think they can justify, I caught them in the very act. This is what is happening. Can we expose them to education? Can we expose them to therapy? Can we try and understand what is happening so that we can prevent it from spreading? Because if you don't catch that one person, you can burn that one person alive. But what if that person was triggered by one man that is still triggering many others? But if we catch the boy, not even catch him, we discuss with the boy, we help him understand this is what you're dealing with. A man came onto this show and said that he was abusing alcohol even when he was in the US, back to back, until he was caught drinking while driving. And instead of them just throwing him in prison and saying you'd have killed people, they took him through therapy, and he realized this was from his past. The damage was done from his parents, and he was still living out the trauma as an adult. So please.
I get the...
Let me take Ekudaya, then I'll come to you, Nima. Sorry. Ekudaya, thanks for calling. You're live. Hello, Ekudaya.
Yeah, can you hear me? Good
yes,
morning.
we can. Go ahead. You're live.
Yeah, on this topic, of jungle justice, I watched a video that tends to point to what you are discussing just a week ago. A man was caught by a group of people, and they were using heavy stick on him. And you could hear from passers-by asking what he has done wrong. I felt that it was wrong. You know, if someone has done something like that, I think even the law says that you should take them to the police station. Nobody has the right to injure another person or take the life of another person.
Engineer, let me pause you for a second. The Nigerians who do this are saying that if I take you to the police station, the next week you're out, or the next day you're back on the streets doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but you see, the society then needs to improve, maybe on our justice system. I want to go back to what used to happen in our traditional setting. According to what Nima always say, you know, in those days, when you are caught like that, doing something wrong, you are taken to the traditional ruler of that town. And as at that time, they had native authority and so on, and you dare do anything wrong. So what I'm saying in essence is that we should find a way of going to a traditional system of dispensing justice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nima, you're going to...
So I understand the psychology behind a person's trauma leading them to being a bad example of society, or, you know, or starting a trend like this where they have been sexually abused and they continue to sexually abuse. I do understand that, but I think that handing a person over to the police is not enough. It solves no problem. Following through. So a community has caught a drug dealer in their estate.
Exactly.
And the only thing they did is hand him over to the police. And they go home. Of course, he's going to get freedom and come out because the police will fail to prosecute or, you know, follow through. And if you know somebody that knows somebody, he eventually will come out. Even in our country now, that everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, we see them come back. A person who has raped a boy, a man who has raped a boy, force a boy to be sexually inclined in such a destructive psychological way, should not just be handed over to the police. It should be made to an example, a scapegoat that the entire society will see by following through to prosecution, to conviction, and getting the right evidence. When we are jumping with emotion, take the boy and him so that all test samples and everything will show he did this, and ensure that whether you are rich or poor, you have the numbers to stand and see to it that this person, say, he will be a scapegoat in prison. And we always say that Dagbada that did it like this, was in prison. And it goes back to the example of the shaming our parents use for atole. I have two siblings who were serious atoles. They tolled to their teenage age. And my parents used to make them go and dry out their mats when they were using mat. And when they were using the mattress, as heavy as it was, they would say, carry it, go, let everybody see that you're the one drying it. Let it smell with you outside. I knew that I had to start covering up for the one that was closest to me at some point, growing. And she used to laugh and say, well, I better no, leave me. After a while, she threw shame away. Leave me until I stop with that. You know? But it wasn't something that our parents did to out of hate. It was something that they wanted to do for you to force you to see how embarrassing or destructive how you were doing. For those of them who were sleepwalkers, my younger brother would sleepwalk to the fridge. A pot of soup, he does not see it till he will finish destroying it there. And my dad at one point got so aggressive with him one night, and he was like, I will flog you today. And he was flogging him. At some point, he dropped the cane and went to sleep. Because how do you flog somebody sleepwalking? So, you know, But they were trying to solve a problem. So we must, when we are solving that problem, instead of just passing the problem and saying, hey, we have given the agency in charge, let all of us go and sleep. I have someone I respect seriously in my society. He's not someone everybody would respect, but I met him at the Commissioner of Police Office fighting courtism. He said, I witnessed those boys try to drown somebody in their court. And me, I am the witness. I will stand as witness against those boys. And he will take his time every week, show up at the Commissioner of Police Office then, and sit down and wait. When are they taking them to court? A mini witness say, I saw them. They drowned that boy. You know, how many of us will not go back to our businesses and say it doesn't concern us?
I need to wrap up on this. Let me come to you.
I was going to say that, you know, this conversation has brought us to where I wanted us to go, which is the justice system. What is it exactly? Who does it? What does it involve? And for me, I feel that community involvement is key. That's the beginning of justice system, and that's the end. That's all of us have to be involved in the investigation and making sure that sentencing is properly done. I don't see it here in Nigeria, but I've seen in movies or in both countries where if they feel that justice was not served properly, they call this their town hall meeting. They call everyone in the community and then insist that government has to do something, or you will see it in our votes. So you are right. We don't participate fully in seeing that someone who has done wrong is properly punished for it. We either turn our faces away, those that are able to report to the police, we report to the police and we leave. And so when we call out the justice system, we're calling ourselves out. Yeah. You know, when we call out the government a lot of times, we're also calling ourselves out. I think this is a time for us to now realize that everything, you know, that happens in a country, the system of a country, is run by people, by us. We're the one that determine whether it works or it does not work. If we know that there's a rogue policeman in our community police station, we are supposed to stand up as a community and report this person and make sure that this person is properly, properly investigated and punished. We cannot just turn our eyes and everybody now looks for how I will protect myself, protect my people, and whatever happens, happens. And that's why we'll have issues like jungle justice. Yeah. And so also, for those proper justice system, the lawyers, the police, and everything, there's a reason why there's jungle justice tomorrow. There's a reason why it's still a conversation. It's because it shows that there's work that you are not doing, and you have to start doing your job properly, and this will no longer be an issue that we discuss in our country.
I think there's a very good way to wrap that segment up, but really, we'll take a few comments and we wrap up. Comments. Like Nima, you have any?
Olumiju says, the killings in Rivers State years ago was ignorance. The solution is enlightenment by all institutions, starting from home to school to religious bodies. Also, the judiciary system in Nigeria needs to be strengthened. He says, talking about jungle justice, 3 things are in place: ignorance, culture, and lack of humanity. The lynching in the USA were as a result of whites seeing blacks as less humans. In the Bible, the attempted stoning of the adulterous woman was culture playing out. On YouTube, let me take some.
Okay, we have to wrap up. I think what I would like to take away from this is what I think Tokwe said earlier about our identity, and I think Miriam also reminded us of who we are as a people. We had a proper system of justice in place. It might not be the secular system that we see now of going through the courts, but there was a functional justice system that we had. Unfortunately, over the years, it has been distorted to make it look as if it is jungle justice. But actually, we had proper justice. It wasn't jungle.
It was called prescribed punishment, according to where he says. Taking them around wasn't jungle justice. Yes. It was a prescribed, accepted community
jungle is an animalistic system that is not barbaric. It's not our system. That's not who we are. But we made it look as if it's ours. No, we actually had a proper system before colonization. I think that identity and the knowledge will help us to realize that we can go back to a proper system where we can actually still confer justice on people, but do it properly and equitably. I think that's all we can take on this segment. When we come back, move on to our next segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.